Hello and welcome, everyone. We're back today again in maybe the last session of the year, maybe second to the last session of the year with Michael in Germany. The Science is the New Religion script Michael has put together for us. He has done a whole new series of studies for us, and I think I'm as excited as hopefully the rest of the listeners are, Michael, to hear what you have to say in your presentation here on the subject of, what should we say? Science, falsely so-called?
Hello, Brett. Hello, dear listeners. I hope that I can come up with something that will be of benefit for the listeners, that we can do something for the truth, which is Jesus Christ, the truth and the way and the life. Yeah. And it's not sea cleaner. Oh, my.
Oh,
Always showing up then when you don't need it. Okay. Yeah, it's science, of course. And this is a totally new script. We have read in 2 sessions that book, The Cosmology Conflict. And so therefore that sets the foundation of the current research. And I won't tell you what it's all about. You will see. It has much to do with biblical prophecy in the so-called last days. But first of all, we go into general explanations. So this is science. Welcome. And hope that you have a time to enjoy and a time to think about something. So, science reminds me of that old quote of Martin Luther, 50-20, Brad, which you can't...
Oh, absolutely. I'm much afraid of the universities. Yes, you want me to read it, I'm assuming, right? Yes, Martin Luther said, I am much afraid that the universities will prove to be the great gates of hell unless they diligently labor in explaining the Holy Scriptures and engraving them in the hearts of youth. I advise no one to place a child where the Scriptures do not reign paramount. Every institution in which men are not unceasingly occupied with the Word of God must become corrupt. That's Martin Luther from 1520.
Yeah, right. So that's a counter Bible of the so-called worldly renowned scientists nowadays in the universities and the professors and the learned. And
I wonder what Martin Luther would have to say about the events of 2020, Michael.
Yeah, that's 500 years later. Yeah, 500 years later,
very interesting.
500 years later, we are the loonies. Sure. Yeah, the problem is that I'm faced with all the people who have studied in the universities, doctors, academics, scientists, PhDs, and they think they know it all because they depend on the wisdom or the teachings of their so-called teacher. And the problem is that I ran all these scientists, and the majority of them, they have just a personal belief, not in Jesus Christ or the Holy Bible, but in Buddhism or in gurus and yogis and all the stuff. Like Theosophy, Annie Besant, Blavatsky, name them all. Name them all. Krishnamurti, for example, here, who said, the better part of you is God. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. And that's just going on for centuries, at least since 1520, according to Martin Luther. This is going on for centuries, and that's also the big problem, that people rely on their truth they have learned in the universities, and they think that's the truth, because also their professed people, their professors, they believe that it's the truth. And that's also the problem, because the people are just listening to people, and the people, most of them at least, they do not prove anything, because they simply believe the authorities. The authority in the form of a doctor, in the form of a teacher, in the form of a professor, or in the form of a guru, like this Sadhguru, who, in my humble opinion, is not a guru. Yeah, and he says so that the problem is us, yeah, because that we think that our salvation will be in heaven and that we will totally destroy this earth on purpose. That's something that he did say. And this Sadhguru, he is a very interesting person, but of course he's only there to lead you astray in all these merits of self-enlightenment and becoming a god for yourself and karma and rebirth and all the stuff. And the problem is that these people, these so-called learned people or these idols, they are totally been present and they are being praised around that so-called globe. Yeah, he has a big followership, this Sadhguru, and if you listen to his science when he says that when you have to eat something and you have to wait for lunar eclipses and both of them are a bad combination because this and that will happen to your stomach, it's totally hilarious and has nothing to do with science, but this is really science so-called. I don't go into this video because I don't have to prove somebody right or wrong. It's just you to decide. I think that we only have adult listeners here, so they can have their own interpretation or just listen to anybody. Yeah, but it's hilarious what this guy is just talking to you. He's talking about that Bruce Lee has Mani Puraka and that is therefore he has that ability of that energy that he can throw somebody. It's a total BS. It's a total fraud. It's a total liar. But people believe him because he sounds so nice and warm and he's smiling all over the place and people just want to follow people instead of listening to the only truth, which is the only begotten Son of God. But as we have such a diversity, not only of people, but of religion nowadays, I think unheard of in the old days, as we have such a diversity of religion, everybody believes anything, and the devil does not care what you believe as long as you don't believe in Jesus Christ, because this is his opponent. And the problem is that I think that many of these people in Buddhism, they don't believe in evil. They just believe in themselves, that they are being capable of just sanctifying themselves and that everything has to do with karma and all the stuff. I'm just warning you, because really if you go into all these people, that's the same thing in every generation. It does not depend if you are just a follower of Hare Krishna, if you are a follower of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in the 60s, if you are a follower of Osho, Bhagwan, in the 70s, 80s, and now of Sadhguru in the 2020s, it does not matter. It's always the same repetitive scale. These people have been supported by the media, and the media has been controlled by Rome all the way. So what does that tell you? That these people are just false prophets, of course. Either you follow the money trail, but it's just that people just want to follow somebody and they want to be in community with other people. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to be separated. And I think that's a problem with many people. They can't accept Christianity, real Christianity, because that would separate them from all the other people who are just in communities, in Jehovah's Witnesses, in New Apostolic Churches, in Seventh-day Adventists, Latter-day Saints, what else you would come across. And I think that's a problem. But if you really live according to the Bible, you will most likely be alone. Much alone. Much of the time. Because it's just too so-called radical for the world. And that's a problem with it. You see that many people are just only in it because it's more easier and more convenient to them to believe what other people believe, because that does not set them apart, but that just joins them in. And also it's just more comfy on your couch just to listen to a TV preacher or just to listen to some program, quote unquote, than to make your own thoughts and just to keep busy with reading books. And that's the problem that I really want to point out. These are all false idols, and I don't have sense in spending so much time with him. I listened to that guy, and he's so hilarious. He even, according to many informations, he even let the corpse of his wife burned after 12 hours, even if it is against a ritual, and so that her parents could not make any autopsy and all the stuff. So there's so much fishy about this so-called guru that I think that adult guy should be aware of that this guy is totally fraud. And he was the one who said that, yeah, I want lesser souls on this earth.
All the religious groups are against me because I'm talking about population. They want more souls. I want less on the planet.
And I know of some followers of him, and they claim that the earth cannot feed all the people, we are too much people, and they're just been parroting all the phrases that he's throwing into their mouth. Yeah, so it's really totally sad. He's also equivocating each issue or question he gets, so he just makes an answer which is so long and he doesn't come to that point. Yeah, he's just a casuist and a sophist. And where do we know that from? Yeah, you only have to know this. Yeah, Pope Francis Sadhguru Sri Sri Ravi Shankar lead to climate talks on COP28. You see that this is just an agenda, and many people have been caught with that. I'm so sorry for also so-called friends of mine who are just really falling for these gurus. And there are many, many people. Yeah, even people in my neighborhood, they are just listening to gurus and all the stuff. This is very interesting. But in the last days, people would like to be gods, huh? I think we know all this verse, Genesis 3:5, Brad.
Oh, sure. Yep, and that reads, "But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. The serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, when your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil."
Yeah, and many people in this karma idea, they think they will be reborn as gods, Brad.
Right. Yep.
My.
So it's back to the serpent, yeah?
It's back to the serpent, yeah. Wise as
Sure.
serpents. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the problem with it. You see, that it's all a matter of belief. We can do 1 million sessions, our entire life, dedicated to the thought of helping others to get to the truth. But either it is supposed that you get the truth, or it's not supposed that you get to the truth of the Bible. Or maybe it's supposed that you get to the truth of the Bible later on. Nobody knows. We can't estimate if somebody is saved. We are doing our best here. But that's the problem. It is all a matter of belief. You can put the truth in somebody's face. If he does not accept it, he does not accept it. It's his own problem. It's not our problem. It's sad to say. But you see, the majority of people, they think that a hand gesture, these are so-called mudras who have magical powers, that it's a sigil of harmony, and some other people will say, oh yeah, that will expel evil forces and all this stuff. Yeah, the interesting detail is now that this symbol is much more older than Buddhism. But the Buddhists or the people in that belief, they won't get it. They won't believe it, because they have been indoctrinated with that belief for centuries, or at least in their own lifespan for decades. They don't believe you. It is so, in the end, it's just a matter of belief. But do you believe Einstein, or do you believe the Bible? Do you believe geocentrism, or do you believe heliocentrism? It's just a matter of belief. You can't convince anybody. So we are doing this program to the listeners to our channels to help them to get a better picture. But in the end, it's not up to us if you have the same opinion or if you have a different opinion, and that's absolutely fine to me. So, after that introduction here, let's go to the real nitty-gritty. Which is a quote of Cardinal Wolsey that is so underestimated, this quote, that I would really like to ask Brad to make a repetition here.
Sure. Since printing cannot be put down, it is best to set up learning against learning, and by introducing all persons to dispute, to suspend the laity between fear and controversy. This, at most, will make them attentive to their superiors and teachers. Yes, attentive.
That's the purpose of our so-called educational system in the kindergarten school, high school, universities, all over the place.
Do you know what year that was done, Michael? This quote? Just out of curiosity.
I think it must be in the 16th century, but we can look it up.
Okay, that would make sense during the Council.
I think, but you see that we only have to look when he was living. So.
Oh, sure, right.
Wolsey.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Thomas Wolsey. That must be him, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he died in 1530, so 16th century, I think, is spot on.
Wow.
Yeah. Was Cardinal Wolsey a good fellow?
Depends on what your definition
he had an
of
illegitimate
good is.
son and an illegitimate daughter. Oh, interesting. Huh.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, well.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. But we are going now delving into the subject that I have chosen, and I did not know what to expect, and afterwards I was so impressed what I have found. So without any further ado, it's called Geology. So, into thinking that it is just a minor subject, you would totally underestimate this subject. So geology, if you would look it up, it has something to do with geologic, with time, with rocks, with temperature, with principles, with locations, with processes. Many items. But what does geo mean? Geo, the explanation from etymology online, is a word-forming element meaning earth, the earth. So that's the place that we are living. Ultimately from Greek geo, combining form of Attic and Ionic G, the earth, land, a land or country. See Gaia. Oh no.
Really?
Yeah. I know why I have avoided it in the first place. Yeah. Gaia, earth as a goddess, from Greek Gaia, spouse of Uranus, mother of the Titans, personification of the earth. Yeah, so the earth as a planet would be female. See Gaia. Yeah, so let's have it for
Turn
Gaia.
it upside down,
Yeah, of course. The Roman equivalent goddess of the earth was Telos, Tellurian, sometimes used in English politically or rhetorically for earth personified or the earth as a planet. How fitting. How fitting. So what can be interesting in geology? Well, you see, geology is the one thing. Our Earth is the other, because this is the place that is supposed that man or mankind should live. And that's a really interesting thing. Because what we have spoken of in the last and the second to last session was just the cosmology conflict. So it just depends what you are believing. I think that I can assume that Red and me are just almost identical in our thinking when it comes down to the Earth as the location of mankind and what the purpose is of sun, moon and stars. So I think that we both agree on this. But I think that we are just...
Affirmative, Michael.
Yeah, I think that we are just in a total minority here. I think the absolute majority of people, especially the younger they are, the more they will fall for the heliocentric system. So, geology, says Wikipedia, is the study of the Earth's structure, surface and origins.
Well, and that's nothing against younger folks, by the way.
No, of course.
Because they have yet to grow up and mature. Mm-hmm. It's just that when you are young, you are quick to draw conclusions and you want to be different than your parents. So you don't listen to them all the time because you know that they're not always right. So yeah, it's not easy growing up. That's for sure. Both Michael and I can vouch for that.
Yeah, first of all, I thought before we're going down into any details, let us admire how awesome our Creator created our Earth.
That's
Has somebody seen, and this is of course it's a CGI picture, but it's not important that it is authentic or what, but it just admire that there are deserts, that there are rivers, that there are seas, that there are mountains, that there are valleys, that there are trees, vegetation, and all the stuff on this earth. Isn't it awesome? Isn't it awesome to appreciate how various our locations are? You got caves, you got sun and the moon and all the stars, you got different seasons, you got different temperatures, you got different surfaces, you got different vegetation. You got the Grand Canyon in the United States, you got the Great Lakes.
Yeah, you got different creatures too.
Different creatures. You get a extreme variety of vegetation and animals throughout the entire United States of America. Compare Alaska, for example, with Florida, and you will see what I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So really, if you really can admire, when you think about all the colors in autumn, when you think about all the growing plants in spring, when you think about all these sunshades in July. Yeah, this is awesome, our Earth, with all these surfaces, even if there would be fire or volcanoes or what, these rock formations, yeah, who are so old. Of course, they will tell you they are millions of years old. We know, I think, biblical better, yeah. All these precious stones, which has been mentioned also in the Bible, let's say Ezekiel 28, yeah, precious stones, metals. Look about the colors here. Look about all this vegetation, about all the variety here. It's just never ending. And okay, I give it if it is sometimes will be photoshopped or enhanced digitally or what else. But you see that bigger picture is that it's just awesome. And you think that has all been created by random, huh? Like you have been created by random. Such a complex system, like a man. And imagine how complex that system is with all the seasons and all the vegetations and all the animals. Yeah, how complex that system is. Think about the Niagara Falls. Think of Tibet. Think of the Himalaya. It's awesome in every way. Yeah, it's awesome and even more awesome. What I would like to point out is that you really see that everything serves its purpose. All the vegetation is according to the landscape and the climate, and also the microevolution also adapts all these plants and these animals to the location whom they are living in. I've always been totally mesmerized when I see all these different aspects of nature. And sometimes we should also just be silent in awe to really appreciate all the stuff that has been presented in front of our eyes. So in the end, there is a science called geology, which tries to explain you about the origin of everything and their so-called laws and times, and you don't have to fall for it. I just wanted to have a broad introduction into the subject, because I thought, okay, there are so many things who are explained to us in a schoolbook, biological way, which do not fit when you think about the Bible. So, geology from ancient Greek means the study of the earth, the branch of the natural science concerned with the earth and other astronomical objects, the rocks of which it is composed and the processes by which they change over time. Modern geology significantly overlaps all other Earth sciences, including hydrology. It is integrated with Earth system science and planetary science. Oh, planetary science. I thought, okay, that's on an even broader and bigger scale than the Earth. So maybe before we go to the geology, we go into our universe.
Oh, you mean the wandering stars?
Yeah, that would be the planets, yeah, but universe means Catholic.
Well, right, exactly.
So
yeah,
that,
Universalist Catholic. That's true.
So that's the first hint, actually, that has been presented to you. That would be universe, but universe means actually Catholic.
Well, it's interesting, also when you're talking about the globe, there is a term called global too. And when you look up global, that pertains to a system as a whole. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at that too. It's it's quite a play on words, isn't it, Michael?
Mm-hmm. And we hope that we can unveil something. At least I think that I found a way which is totally different to the ways that usually being interpreted or just being explained. So therefore, we can assume that the science which has been put into our own eyes and into our own minds by our so-called scholars must be, according to the quote of Martin Luther and according to the quote of Cardinal Wolsey, which we heard a few minutes before.
Learning against learning, yes.
Must be the opposite of the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this would start a revolution, at least psychological or a mental revolution, because people would what is it?
Revolted.
Thank you. Which people would revolt against the teachings of the Bible, and I think that's done on purpose.
Yes. Think of the French Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
This is not new. This is very old.
Yeah, and the revolution of the younger against the elders, or the elders, or the learned, or parents, or what else you would like to come up with. And this is also a very interesting divide and conquer scheme, or divide et impera game. Yeah, so you influence the younger people, and they are always revolting against the older generation, of course. And so you got a victim. So the younger pupils, they fell victim to all this worldly science. And you have it for example, in evolution, which would like to explain that everything comes from random. So all the nature that you have just seen and your own body has just been by no purpose, but just comes randomly by accident. Yeah. So that is, for example, the revolution which took place in heaven with Lucifer and his angels, or his followers. That also took place then in the Garden of Eden with Eve, who just fell lie to the victim or the science of the serpent, who said, "You surely shall not die. You will be as gods," like in the Buddhist way, or in in the in the yogi way. So when it comes down to revolution, for example, in the creation, on the totally creation, then when you fell victim for this hilarious Freemason idea, which is then that the creation happens just by evolution, like Charles Darwin and his ancestors, then it has also been written before Jesus Christ walked down on the earth, so thousands of years before that Charles Darwin came up with the idea. The Bible in Jeremiah 2:26 quoted,
yes, as the thief is ashamed when he is found, so is the house of Israel ashamed. They, their kings, their princes, and their priests, and their prophets, saying to a stock, "Thou art my father," and to a stone, "Thou hast brought me forth." For they have turned their back unto me, and not their face. But in the time of their trouble, they will say, "Arise and save us." But where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Let them arise, if they can save thee in the time of thy trouble, for according to the number of thy cities are thy gods, O Judah.
Yeah, so saying to a stock, thou art my father, and to a stone, thou hast brought me forth, I think is a direct resemblance to the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin. And I'm not alone with my interpretation, but of course, you're free to have any opinion about it. At least that's my opinion about it. So people like to venerate the creation before the creator. They don't accept any creator, like in a Buddhist way. They only accept forces of nature. What do these modern textbooks tell us? That everything happened with a big bang. And then out of a sudden, boom, everything has been created. It just needed a matter of time. Sure. That's so hilarious, but people fall for that because they get good grades. They gonna make it in this world if they're just being repetitive and just repeat all these lies. They fall for the lies which the teachers are just putting in front of them because they get good grades. Afterwards, they get a job, then they get good money, and then they get a social standing, and they get a beautiful partner, they get a beautiful house. Reminds me on Talking Heads Once in a Lifetime, with a beautiful wife and a beautiful house. And what for? For all repetition of all these lies. If you are just questioning the system or you're just opposing it, oh yeah, then you are the enemy. You won't make it in this world. You won't get a decent job. You won't get big money. And the majority of people, if they would have the ability to choose between the truth and the money, I think they would choose the money. So, let's get it on here. Geologists broadly study the properties and processes of Earth and other terrestrial planets. The Earth is not a planet. Oh, I know it's hard to understand, but you have followed, I think, the second to last and last session. Geologists use a wide variety of methods to understand the Earth's structure and evolution, big alarm bell, including fieldwork, rock description, geophysical techniques, chemical analysis, physical experiments, and numerical modeling. Geology is important for mineral and hydrocarbon exploration and exploitation, evaluating water resources, etc., etc. And now, understanding natural hazards, remediating environmental problems, and providing insights into the past climate change. Oh, there was a climate change? Geology is a major academic discipline and is central to geological engineering and plays an important role in geotechnical engineering. And when you now fell asleep, I'm sorry. When you are falling asleep, I'm really sorry. The problem is you can't.
Yeah, that last statement there is really something, isn't it?
Yeah. The problem is that you can't rely on any book, on any teacher. You have to come up with ideas on your own. For example, if I go into fashion, faith, and fantasy and the new physics of the universe, it sounds extreme great, and Roger Penrose is a household name. His book is called Fashion, Faith, and Fantasy. Is there anything that you come up with the title that you find a little bit strange, Brett, maybe?
Yeah. How is it that fantasy is part of the universe?
No, you have to think like a child. It's so easy. Oh. Fashion, fate, fantasy. Come on. You can do it.
What? Do what?
You have only to combine the stuff. Fashion, fate, fantasy. Come on. What's the thing that is similar to all the stuff? Fashion, fate, fantasy. Come on.
FFF?
Ah.
666?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Yeah, it's
I
always.
Thought so. It took me a minute. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, but it's always very simple. Yeah. So it's just an example. I don't know that man, and I love everybody. So Roger Penrose is a British theoretical physicist and a professor at Cambridge University. Universe means Catholic, used as a media actor in the media industry and the science church to popularize the concept of black holes based on Albert Einstein's theory of relativity and the Big Bang. He was educated at University College London and Cambridge. He's a member of the Royal Society and was awarded, and he worked with Stephen Hawking. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Has to do with wormholes, and he is the son of Lionel Penrose, Cambridge Apostle, and professor as eugenics at University of London. So, would you trust that guy? Yeah, maybe it's great to also go into this, because I really like that article here. The Science Church is a corrupt establishment of scientists who pretend to care about truth and science while they serve a totalitarian regime of corrupt elite families promoting unscientific dogmas like the Big Bang Theory, Darwinism, relativity theory in the media industry, like National Geographic, History Channel of Disney and Hearst. It is closely associated and interwoven with the corrupt education system of the Jesuits and the transhumanist religion of presenting AI and technology as superior to humans. The most high priests of the Science Church are Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, Carl Sagan, Richard Dawkins, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, Kip Thorne. Almost no scientific research is done by independent scientists, only technical research for applications sponsored by companies. It is often used as an antagonist to the New Age Church, controlled by Graham Hancock and Rupert Sheldrake. The priests of the Science Church, Jesuit Anthony Fauci, were used as experts in the fascist COVID-19 ritual. And I think with that article we do not make so much new friends here. Yeah, that's a very interesting article.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh.
Yeah.
How pathetic.
Yeah. You see, this is the Science Church. Yeah, 1540s, the Jesuits established a corrupt education system. Well, I think that was a little bit later, but 1543, the Polish astronomer Copernicus introduces the theory of heliocentrism, also proposed by Greek Aristarchus of Samos, dedicated his work to Pope Farnese, who created the Jesuits. Heliocentrism is further developed by Tycho Brahe, Johannes Kepler, Giordano Bruno, and Galileo Galilei, who is an agent of the Medicis, of course, and the agent of the Pope. It's just, it goes on, and it goes on since 500 years. That is very, very, very important. People who are just thinking that we are the loonies, they don't see that they have been betrayed for hundreds of years.
Generations, Michael.
Generations, yeah.
You're looking at all kinds of tradition that go along with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Voltaire spreaded the Enlightenment trend. Yeah. It's not an enlightenment, it's a darkening, yeah, but they don't see it this way. It's just all the usual suspects here. Yeah, so there is no missing link in your evolution theory. Has not been found, no? But yeah, maybe we wait another years. Sometimes AI or ChatGPT will come up with a missing link, and people will believe it. They will believe it. They will eat it. Eat it like candy, you see. They will eat it like candy.
Chat GPT.
Yeah. It's all a big BS. When I found an interesting paper on Albert Einstein, maybe we'll use it. But I think that we get back to our little geology thing here. The problem that I found is that I do not know if it is on purpose here, but every time I see that the general knowledge of important items is not publicly visible. So that means, for example, if I got here a showmaster Jay Leno, and I do not know if these are paid actors, when he's just interviewing people about geography. So what's the location of that country? Which language do Dutch people speak? What is the highest mountain on the earth? For that, on that regard, for example, people are just smiling and just brushing their hair and just making a good impression, but do not know anything. And I do not know if that is on purpose, because he is just interviewing here high school girls and boys. So I think that the generation has been dumbed down, as Brett so often claimed. Yeah, so what kind of language do they speak in Great Britain? And she said, British. Or what kind of nation are people from the city of Amsterdam? Yeah, and the people say Amsterdamian. yeah, instead of Dutch, Netherlands. Yeah, you see.
Or Flemish, or...
Yeah, you know this, but you see that Jay Leno jaywalking, you see for certain reasons I can't show that entire video, which is totally hilarious. Yeah, because he's just interviewing Aishi or Aisha, that girl here, and Aisha has beautiful hair, but she does not know anything. Yeah, so the people of Denmark, what are they called? And she said, Denmarkians. Yeah. And that's the problem, you see, that where to start with the people, because I think they do not get a proper education. They get all these things they shall learn by repetition, but they do not know anything, and of course they don't know the truth. That's the problem with it. Yeah. Yeah, so the people from Denmark, they are calling Denmarkians at Marty's, and you see that she's got beautiful teeth. But the majority of people, they're just only in for good grades. But they are not in for the truth. They don't read books anymore, Brett. They don't read books. That's a big, big problem. A comment to that video from Gina. Gina wrote, although I find this mildly humorous, I am overwhelmingly embarrassed for my country's state of education. I am 58 years old and was able to answer all questions correctly. Despite present day's liberally skewed and horribly manipulated curriculum, the absolute truth in our nation's history, the original and correct mathematic teaching and the teaching of science with respect to creationism over evolution should be paramount for the greatest success for our students and theirs and our futures. How's that? But that's from a 58-year-old lady.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there you go.
Who can compare it to their education 50 years ago.
And I can vouch to that. Michael. Even from 58 to 54, there's a dramatic difference, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is. Because remember, I'm the product of birth from 1969.
Yeah, I know.
And boy, did this country go down the toilet.
Yeah. I think
hate to say it, but that's the truth. We really went down the toilet.
In
1969 we did. It's been a long time. Yeah, it continues to go down.
Make up great.
It's not coming back up.
Where's Iraq? I don't know. South Europe or something, South Iraq. Yeah, nobody knows anything. So people believe everything that has been put out to their in smartphones, laptops, computers, and all the way because they don't read any books. So this week, actually last week of December 2023, I received numerous claims that a new item has been found or discovered. Divine honored stone was revealed to be an egg of a dinosaur. Wow. And you have to believe it, of course. Yeah. So it's a holy stone of the Hindus, of the Indian people in India. It's an egg from a dinosaur. You have to believe it, of course. That will the experts will tell you this, and you can't prove it. So you just believe it. You do not know it, but you only have to believe it. That's the difference between knowing and believing. Because they can come up with everything. Because everything is total fraud, or at least you can question it. It's questionable. For example, the radiocarbon dating. Radiocarbon dating, we have talked about that before, as carbon dating or carbon-14 dating is a method for determining the age of an object containing organic material by using the properties of radiocarbon and radioactive isotope of carbon. And this is just the Wikipedia article. And I have also highlighted here the things that I found very interesting. During its life, a plant or an animal in its equilibrium with its surroundings by exchanging carbon either with the atmosphere or through its diet, it will therefore have the same proportion of sea as the atmosphere, or in the case of marine animals or plants with the ocean. Once it dies, it ceases to acquire... No, I don't read it, all the stuff. So, this is their method, this is their calculation method, and it's very interesting because The C atoms currently in the samples, they claim allow the calculation of T, so the time means the age of the sample using the equation above. The sample is assumed to have originally the same carbon ratio as the ratio in the atmosphere. Question: how do they know the ratio of carbon in the atmosphere 8,000 years ago, Brad?
Good question.
They can't.
Right.
Yeah? So this is an assumption because you don't know the ratio in the atmosphere before the big flood. For example. Yeah? So this is just a fairy tale. This is just fantasy science. Yeah? The problem is here, you see that quite in the same explanation on the same page of Wikipedia, you see it here. The calculations for radiocarbon years assume that the atmospheric C to C ratio has not changed over the time, and that's the big problem here. Nobody knows anything. That's an assumption. That is not the truth. It's like Big Bang or light giant evolution theory. It is just an assumption. Yeah? Libby's original exchange reservoir hypothesis assumed that the ratio in the exchange reservoir is constant all over the world, but it has since been discovered, this is original Wikipedia, that there are several causes of variation in the ratio. Oh, how could that be? So it's no absolute truth, huh? You can come up with everything. In Libby's paper here, and I do not go into the details, you can look it up on your own. He used a value of 5,720 years, so that is their approximately time span where they claim they can exactly figure out how old anything is. 5,720 years, which is extremely close to the 6,000 years of the original biblical creation amount of years that we are currently in. How awesome is that? So when they are just do not know anything, but just assuming something, I don't think they can come up with anything of value, because it is just an assumption or it is just guessing. And I know that when they have done this C14 radiocarbon dating, they came also to different results for one and the same sample. So for an identical sample. That leads us to the big problem that you can't trust anybody. Because in the school system you have learned that it is a solar system here, nonetheless. Solar system means that the sun is the most dominant item in our so-called universe. And these planets or not planets in that particular line are just their distance from the sun. So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. Which is extremely interesting because the planets of the solar system were named after the Roman gods, which is not quite right. But for the majority it is, because Uranus actually is Greek. Now, look at this line of planets. And you see that the Earth is by far the most complex of anything. Yeah, you see with the Mars, you see just a red ball. With the Neptune, you see just a blue marble. But and the Saturn has a ring. But the Earth has just diverse regions and vegetation and all the stuff. And they claim that is quite natural because the Earth has a certain distance from the Sun, which enables life. So it would be too hot on Mercury and Venus and too cold on the other planets. And of course, what you have to do is you have to believe it. This is heliocentric system. This is helio-sorcery, which there is an extremely good video of helio-sorcery, but I think that the book that we have read covers that up. Think of geometrical shapes. Let something drop into the ocean and you see there are circular waves. And there is a symbol for everything. And I think that that symbol here is very, very dominant. This is a cross inside a circle. And that cross inside a circle is an interesting symbol because it symbolizes the sun. that's maybe new for many, many people, that the cross actually is a symbol for the sun, and they don't get it unless they would have read some books. But they don't get it when they are just using their laptop, smartphones, and their computer. So the veneration of the sun is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, ever. And the veneration of the sun is similar to the veneration of the cross, as you might see here from that IHS symbol on a Eucharist. Is it Eucharist, Brett?
Yeah, that's correct. Or the, what else do they call it? The wafer.
The wafer, yeah. The wafer, yeah. Mm-hmm. The people do not understand the difference between Christianity and Catholicism, so we have to correct it every time that we see any depiction here, any info, any what else. Thomas Paine claims, and it is untrue, but we can just solve it. It's all a big plan. But you see that symbol here is actually the sun, or the sun cross, so the cross of the sun. Why is it? Because if you just put a cross in it, it means that you have 4 directions. You have north, south, west, and east. Which means that that circular object, the sun depicted here, is symbolized here that it has power in all 4 directions. That's my interpretation of it. And that's also quite logical, because if that cross there is also a death method, then Jesus Christ being crucified, Jesus Christ on the cross, means that he has been worshipped and offered to the sun god. And then you look to the biblical scriptures at what time Jesus Christ has been crucified, extracting the term Christian to Catholic. So the Catholic religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which they put a man called Christ in the place of the sun and pay him the adoration originally paid to the sun. Which means that the Catholic Church, although they present Jesus Christ but only on the cross as a dead body, these are sun worshippers. You see that, ask any Seventh-day Adventist and he will tell you. And you see that in their symbolism, with their sundial on the St. Peter's Square and all the stuff. Yeah, notice the halos. And of course, this can only be Catholic, because it is forbidden in the Bible, in the second commandment, that you have any images and idols that you venerate. Yeah, so veneration of Jesus Christ. And you see that this halo is actually the sun. And this halo, or this circular symbol here, with Apollo Mitra, or Ra, in the Egyptian pagan religion, here is also a depiction of the sun. So, the confrontation and confusion always is part of their plan. Yeah, he was crucified in the 6th hour.
Oh, that would kind of make sense, because, the number 6 represents not such good things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like 666, the man of sin.
Yeah, but my point would be, if he would be sacrificed to the sun god, then they would not sacrifice him in the dark. They would sacrifice him in broad daylight, or especially at noon. Yeah? So when he was crucified at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he was hanging there for 6 hours, unbelievable, but 6 hours, then that would cover the entire time when there was bright sunshine and the sun was at the horizon, at the zenith, so and on the top of it. That's my point, you see? Hope you get it. Hope you understand my point of view.
Yep, it's easy.
Yeah. So, if these are sun worshippers, then you have the old pagan trinity from Semiramis, Nimrod, and Tammuz. This is not Egyptian. This is Babylonian. So this is the root of it all. Yeah. So, and Tammuz, the T, would then be the Tau cross, the equivalent to Tau cross. People who are just worshipping the creation. And these are, you see that she's the moon goddess, he's the sun god. Yeah. So And so he was. If Jesus Christ would be crucified on a tau cross, which I think is most likely, then he was crucified to the T, as the Tammuz, to the sun god.
Ezekiel 8, verse 11. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel, and in the midst of them stood Jazaniah, the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery? For they say, the Lord seeth us not. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. He said also unto me, Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abomination than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east. They worshipped the sun towards the east. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger, and lo, they put the branch to their nose.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. We can use that for both sessions. I've seen. Yeah.
Good.
They're back towards the temple of the Lord, so they reject the Lord, obviously, and they turn their faces towards the east, and they worship the sun towards the east. It's very obvious here. I think there's no way that you can misunderstand that quote. Yeah, so they are worshipping the sun, which is the abomination. That is the opposite of worshipping the Creator, but they are worshipping the creation.
Yes.
Tammuz allegedly had been born on December 25th. And so as the Catholic Church is a mockery, of course, they will just exchange Jesus Christ, and their Jesus Christ actually is Tammuz. If you don't believe it, you don't believe it. You don't have to believe me. You would have to read a certain book. That book is coming from Alexander Hislop and called The Two Babylons. In German, that title is even more interesting. It's called then From Babylon to Rome. And then you have also the explanation of the two Babylons. So Rome is Babylon. Or the papal worship proved to be the worship of Nimrod, from Reverend Alexander Hislop. On page 18, on the objects of worship, he claims the following. The emblem of the sun was a circle. The hieroglyphical relation between 0, the circle, and 0, the seed, was easily established. On page 151, we read, Horus, then now we are the Egyptian trinity, Horus is the child, Horus or Osiris was the sun god, so was Apollo. So remember Apollo 11, the fake moon landing? And Osiris was then the lord of the underworld because he was slain. And Osiris, whom Horus represented, was the great revealer. The Pythian Apollo was the god of oracles. On page 145 we read, In Egypt, says Wilkinson, quoting Porphyry, were embalmed, they took out their intestines and put them into a vessel over which, after some other rites had been performed for the dead, one of the embalmers pronounced an invocation of the sun in behalf of the deceased. The formula, according to Euphantus, who translated it from the original into Greek, was as follows: O thou sun, our sovereign Lord, and all ye deities who have given life to man, receive me and grant me an abode with the eternal gods. You see, the sun has been worshipped there in Egypt. O thou sun, our sovereign Lord. Sun, S-U-N. On the footnotes, he claims that we shall yet see that the cross is the express symbol of Tammuz, the sun god and the god of fire. Yeah, and the Tammuz, then I think the shape of the T-cross is the most likely alternative when it comes down to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. But Tammuz is the sun god and the god of fire, and his symbol is the cross. Because the cross also is the old pagan symbol for the sun cross. On page 160 from Doctrine and Disciple, it claims, almost every jot or tittle in the Egyptian worship has a symbolical meaning. The round disc so frequent in the sacred emblems of Egypt symbolized the sun. Now when Osiris, the sun divinity, became incarnate and was born, it was not merely that he should give his life as a sacrifice for man, but that he might also be the life and nourishment of the souls of man. It is universally admitted that Isis was the original of the Greek and Roman Ceres. But Ceres, be it observed, was worshipped not simply as the discoverer of corn, she was worshipped as the mother of corn. The child she brought forth was he Siri, the seed, or was the most frequently called in Assyria Ba, which signifies at once the sun and the corn. What's interesting is that you really have to think about that all these Greek, Egypt, Roman, etc., they were worshipping the sun. Because Osiris, as Apollo, as what else has never existed. Sun is fronting the round wafer, whose roundness is so important an element in the Romish mystery, what can be the meaning of it, but just to show to those who have eyes to see that the wafer itself is only another symbol of Baal or the sun. If the sun divinity was worshipped in Egypt as the seed or in Babylon as the corn, precisely so is the wafer adored in Rome. Bread corn of the elect, have mercy upon us, is one of the appointed prayers of the Roman litany addressed to the wafer in the celebration of the Mass. So, it is no difference if the sun was being worshipped in Egypt or in Babylon, or in Greek, or where else. But the sun has been worshipped and has always been depicted as a round object. And it's the same for other tribes. According to the established rite of Zoroastra, was the sun god worshipped. When every Egyptian on the same night was required to light a lamp before his house in the open air, this was an act of homage to the sun that had veiled its glory by enshrouding itself in a human form. Let me remind you that the sun has been worshipped as the creator and the sun has been worshipped as rebirth, because the sun goes up and goes down, so dies every day. I think that in the heliocentric system people do not get it, because there the sun does not die. But in our literal geocentric system, the sun goes up every day and goes down every day, so it's not visible to us. That means that the sun, in the old rites, the sun just dies every day.
Yep. Another way of thinking of it is, the warm light gives way to dark cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's really basic, yeah.
Mm-hmm. On page 155, we learned, as there is reason to believe that the pagan festival of burning lamps was observed in commemoration of the ancient fire worship, so there is a ceremony at Rome in the Easter week which is an unmistakable act of fire worship, when a cross of fire is the grand object of worship. This ceremony is thus graphically described by the authoress of Rome in the 19th century. Quote, "The effect of the blazing cross of fire suspended from the dome above the confession or tomb of St. Peter's was strikingly brilliant at night. It is covered with innumerable lamps which have the effect of one blaze of fire. The whole church was thronged with a vast multitude of the classes and countries, from royalty to the meanest beggar, all gazing upon this one object. In a few minutes the Pope and all his cardinals descended into St. Peter's, and room being kept for them by the Swiss guards, the aged pontiff prostrated himself in a silent adoration before the cross of fire. A long train of cardinals knelt before him, whose splendid robes and attendant train-bearers formed a striking contrast to the humility of their attitude. What could be more clear and unequivocal act of fire worship than this? And I have to ask, fire worship and the god of fire is also Tammuz. So it's the sun god. It's the worship of fire is also the sun god. The worship of the cross of fire on Good Friday explains at once the anomaly otherwise so perplexing that Christ should be buried on Thursday and rise from the dead on Saturday. It is the festival of Holy Week, really, as its rites declare, one of the old festivals of Saturn, the Babylonian fire god, or the sun god, or the god of fire. Among the many names of the Babylonian god was the name Baal Saman, or the Lord of Heaven, which is the name of the sun, but also of course of the sun god. But Baal Saman also properly signifies the Lord of Oil, and was evidently intended as a synonym of the divine name, the Messiah. In Herodotus we find a statement made, which this name alone can fully explain. There an individual is represented as having dreamt that the sun had anointed their father. So we can agree on the fact that the cross is the symbol of Tammuz, and that Tammuz was the god of fire or the sun god. There is hardly a pagan tribe where the cross has not been found. The cross was worshipped by the pagan Celts long before the incarnation and death of Christ. It is a fact, says Morins, not less remarkable than well attested, that the Druids in their growth were accustomed to select the most stately and beautiful tree as an emblem of the deity they adorned, and having cut the side branches, they fixed two of the largest of them to the highest part of the trunk in such a manner that those branches extend on each side like the arms of a man, and together with the body presented the appearance of a huge cross, and on the bark in several places was also inscribed the letter Tau, Thau. It was worshipped in Mexico for ages before the Roman Catholic missionaries set foot there, large stone crosses being erected probably to the god of rain. The cross, thus widely worshipped or regarded as a sacred emblem, was the unequivocal symbol of Bacchus, the Babylonian Messiah, for he was represented with a headband covered with crosses. See figure 45. This symbol of the Babylonian god is reverenced at this day in all the wide wastes of Tartary where Buddhism prevails, and the way in which it is represented among them forms a striking commentary on the language applied by Rome to the cross. The cross, says Cornel Wilford, is the Asiatic researchers, though not an object of worship among the Bouts and Buddhists, is favorite emblem and device among them. It is exactly the cross of the Manichaeans, with leaves and flowers springing from it. This cross, putting forth leaves and flowers and fruit also, as I am told, is called the divine tree, the tree of the gods, and the tree of life and knowledge, and productive of whatever is good and desirable, etc., etc. So there you got your reference to Buddhist as well, and you got a reference to this, once again, to this old pagan Babylonian system. So Tammuz, the false messiah, which we have read in, I think it was Ezekiel, and we will come up with that in the next session. Tammuz, the false messiah, was everywhere substituted in its stead. Thus, by the sign of the cross, Christ has been crucified anew by those who profess to be his disciples. Now, if these things be matter of historical fact, who can wonder that in the Romish Church the sign of the cross has always and everywhere been seen to be such an instrument of rank superstition and delusion? There is much more in the rites and ceremonies of Rome that might be brought to elucidate our subject, but the above may suffice. If the above remarks be well founded, surely it cannot be right that this sign of the cross or emblem of Tammuz should be used in Christian baptism. At the period of the Revolution, a royal commission appointed to inquire into the rites and ceremonies of the Church of England, numbering among its members 8 or 10 bishops, strongly recommended that the use of the cross as tending to superstition should be laid aside. If such a recommendation was given then, and that by such authority as members of the Church of England must respect, how much ought that recommendation to be enforced by the new light which Providence has cast on the subject? So that was it for this session, that it's about geology and all the stuff, and it is not only about heliosorcery and heliocentric systems, let me assume, but I think I had to make that point with the cross once and for all, that the cross is really a sun symbol system or a sun symbol worship. So that lays the foundation for the next session, and I think that you will be in for a kind of a surprise in the next session, because in the next session we will come up with another interesting study, I hope, for science as a new religion when it comes down to geology. So thanks again for bearing with my bad English, and I hope that in the next session I can have a little bit more profound presentation. It was a little bit of a mess in this one maybe, but I hope that we can continue in that study. So thanks very much for having me, and hand it over to my beloved brother Brad as usual.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, that's quite a topic, all right. Looking at Alexander Hislop's Two Babylons. That's a study in of itself, all right. And yeah, looking forward, Michael, to what you have to bring to the table. And it's been a pleasure to have you with. And we'll catch up on the next study, and hope to see you then. God bless, and Maranatha.
But when it comes to certain aspects of life, it doesn't matter who. If God comes, I will not listen to him because I know better than him. This sounds absolutely egoistic, stupid, Mike Tyson-like. But what can I do? It's true. So when it comes to life, fundamental life, I am an absolute authoritarian. There's no question. There are no two ways about it. You quote the scripture to me, I will dismiss it. You bring your Pandit to me, I will dismiss him. You bring anybody to me. You wake Buddha up from his grave and bring him, I'll still dismiss him unless he agrees with me. So I am a total authoritarian when it comes to life. I think I fit into that label better than anything else. Is that okay with you?